On today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are locked on Jalyx Hunt. In year two, the Eagles edge rusher is going to have a much bigger role than we expected. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Tuesday edition of the show. I'm your host, as always, Louie DiBiase. Today, we continue our player profile series, focusing and zooming in deeper on some really important Eagles, underratedly so, for the 2025 season. Yesterday, we were locked on Moro Ojomo. Today, we are locked on second-year edge rusher Jalyx Hunt. How good can Hunt be in year two? I think he's going to have to develop a lot faster than we initially thought when the Eagles selected him in the third round of the 2024 NFL draft. He's going to have a much bigger role this year than we initially thought was going to be the case, right? I don't think when they did draft Jalyx Hunt that we thought year two, we thought, okay, maybe he's going to take another step forward. He could be that fourth guy in the rotation to replace Brandon Graham when BG inevitably retires. But between Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff, who had just gotten a big 3-year contract to replace Hassan Reddick, between those two, and Josh Sweat was on a 1-year deal, maybe still you extend him to a long-term contract at 27 years old. Between those three players, and again, who knows what Brandon Graham's future was, between those 3 to 4 guys, we probably thought at least 2 of them were going to be ahead of Jalyx Hunt in the rotation for a couple years while he develops. And that was the case in 2024. Jalyx Hunt got a bigger role as the year went on because Bryce Huff played his way out of the lineup and then got injured. Brandon Graham got injured. So he was one of those 3 main guys in the rotation at the end. It was him, Nolan Smith, and Josh Sweat. But initially we thought he's going to be the 4th or 5th guy and kind of put on ice because coming out of college, Jalyx Hunt had only played the edge rusher position for a couple years. Like, he was very new to this spot. A ton of incredible upside at 6'4", a 85 percentile wingspan, crazy speed and bend. Like, he had all the traits that you wanted in an edge rusher that made him worth a 3rd-round pick instead of being a late rounder. But he was a safety only a couple years ago. So I think we all thought this is a year 2, probably more of a year 3, year 4 project player. You have depth in front of him. Maybe year 3, year 4, he's ready to go, and he's a big part of this defense. But year 1, year 2, he's more of a developmental project for Vic Fangio, and year 2, he's probably the 3rd or 4th guy in the rotation. Well, we know that Josh Sweat is now in Arizona. Nolan Smith did take that step up as the number 1 guy, as the Eagles' number 1 edge rusher. But Josh Sweat's in Arizona. Bryce Huff, I think, is likely going to be cut. And I think suddenly Jalyx Hunt is the favorite to be the second full-time starter on the edge opposite Nolan Smith, like in that rotation of 3 to 4 guys that the Eagles like to have on the edge. Jalyx Hunt right now is the favorite to be second this season in snaps, only behind Nolan Smith. Like, I thought that was not going to be the case. I thought Josh Sweat would be here long-term or Bryce Huff would pan out, or I even thought they might draft a traditional edge rusher this year, right? But at the same time, I think Jalyx Hunt is ready for the bigger role than we expected in year 2. Look, Azeez Ojulari, like, he's a solid player. Joshua Uche has shown some promise in the past. He has 2nd-round talent, has a season in the past where he had double-digit sacks for the Patriots. Again, who knows what the situation is with Bryce Huff. So there are options outside of Jalyx Hunt. But I think the best case scenario for the Eagles, now that Josh Sweat is gone, now that Bryce Huff hasn't really worked out, the best case scenario for the Eagles is Jalyx Hunt becoming that main guy behind Nolan Smith. And I think they are banking, kind of like them banking on Moro Ojomo replacing Milton Williams. They really are banking on Jalyx Hunt replacing Josh Sweat's production on the edge this year. Ojulari is going to be, I think, a very solid 3rd guy. But at the end of the season, if you told me Ojulari is second in snaps behind Nolan Smith on the edge, I don't think that's a good scenario that played out. I'll ask what happened to Jalyx Hunt. Did he not really take that next step? If Joshua Uche is second, sure, those guys were former early day two picks that have had success in the NFL. Maybe they do break out in Philly, but I think Jalyx Hunt is the player that's younger, has better traits overall, and is on the rise more as a player compared to those guys. So I think the best case scenario that plays out is that Jalyx Hunt is that number 2 guy. So initially when they did draft him, I don't think they foresaw this as the future, but this is the way it played out. Luckily, Jalyx Hunt did show at the end of his rookie year that he's developing faster at this new position than we originally thought. So I think he is ready for this bigger role the Eagles are projecting for him in 2025. And now you do have to remember as well, Jihaad Campbell is a part of this equation. The Eagles did trade up for him on day one. Jihaad Campbell originally was an edge rusher when he got recruited to the University of Alabama. He's going to be a pass rusher, like that's his main role with Philadelphia. He will play some edge snaps, so Campbell will be a part of that rotation, but I think he's going to be someone they want to line up inside as a stand-up linebacker, even as a pass rusher, as a blitzer. They're going to want to use Jihaad Campbell standing up more than a traditional overhang edge rusher. So Campbell could be a part of this equation, but I think overall, Jalyx Hunt is the next man up at this spot. Azeez Ojulari, Joshua Uche, Bryce Huff, you hope one or two of them can be a solid third or fourth guy in the rotation. But the time is now for Jalyx. The development process has to speed up. They need him more than they thought. And lucky for them, if the trajectory continues that he was on at the end of the season and through the playoffs, if he continues those step-by-step development processes from 2024, then they're going to be okay. I'm really excited about him. I think he can be more. Ojulari, I think, is like the breakout player to watch on this Eagles roster. But Jalyx Hunt, I think, is that second guy, and that's why we're focusing on him today on the Locked On Eagles podcast. What is his ceiling in 2025? What did he show in 2024 that should get you excited? We're going to get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast as we are locked on Jalyx Hunt. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. We have the Final Four, and I think no matter what, an awesome championship outcome is going to happen. The Knicks, the Pacers, the Timberwolves. You've got as well the Oklahoma City Thunder. Every night of the postseason has delivered highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, and that's going to continue. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action than now with FanDuel in the conference finals. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. Tonight's Timberwolves Thunder, I actually think I'm going to take the Timberwolves money line. The Thunder coming off a tiring 7-game series with Denver. Minnesota's had some time to rest. I think Minnesota steals it. I'm going to FanDuel today, and I'm betting on the Timberwolves money line. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it does win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, guys, we continue on today's Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. We are locked on Jalyx Hunt, the Eagles' second-year pass rusher, who I'm really excited for. Again, I think he is stepping into a much bigger role in year 2 than we imagined originally when they drafted him last year in the 3rd round. Because Bryce Huff didn't work out, because Josh Sweat cashed in with the Arizona Cardinals, because Brandon Graham did retire, they need Jalyx Hunt. Again, maybe Jihaad Campbell pans out on the edge. Maybe Azeez Ojulari takes another step. Maybe Joshua Uche breaks out again like he did in 2022. Maybe the Eagles, they rejuvenate one of those former second-round picks. Like, those are also possible outcomes. They're not putting all their eggs in the Jalyx Hunt basket, but they are giving him the best chance of all those guys to be the guy opposite Nolan Smith. I think they want him to be the guy because he is the most talented of those players. He is the youngest, and I think he's trending in the better direction. Ojulari has kind of plateaued. He's, to me, a 5 to 8 sack a year guy, and that's really solid, but he's not a star. Joshua Uche was a healthy scratch a lot last year. He's in a similar boat to Bryce Huff, where he's had past success, but what have you done for me lately? He hasn't really been a great player the last couple years, and Bryce Huff was not a good player for the Eagles a lot of the 2024 season. So best case scenario is that Jalyx Hunt is that guy this year. if he is anything like the player he was at the end of the regular season into the playoffs when he did replace Bryce Huff, when he did have to take over for Brandon Graham in that 3-man rotation because of the injuries, because of the performances of Bryce Huff, when he did take over, he was really good. He was a lot farther along than I originally thought. I thought he was going to be raw as a rookie. Again, a new player to this position. He grew up playing safety and only played at the edge rusher position for a couple years in college. And yet his playoff numbers were unbelievable. He had a sack against the Rams. He had a half a sack against the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59, but he was also in on like 3 different sacks with KC. He had the highest pass rush win rate of all Eagles edge rushers in the Super Bowl at a 23.5% win rate in that game. I counted 8 total pressures in the postseason against Green Bay, Los Angeles, Washington, and Kansas City. If you get that version of Jalyx Hunt, playoff Jalyx from 2024 and 2025, this is a breakout player in year 2. Like if you get that guy, I think the Eagles are getting a stud. And I think this could end up being one of the steals of the 2024 NFL draft. Honestly, going back and watching his tape in the postseason, this week I've been doing a lot of film study on Moro Ojomo, Jalyx Hunt, a lot of these players that we're going to be profiling on the show this week. Going back and watching his postseason tape, look, Nolan Smith was dominant in the postseason. He was the best edge rusher in the championship run. Josh Sweat was dominant in Super Bowl 59. But looking back, Jalyx Hunt was behind Nolan Smith. He was the second most consistent edge rusher in this playoffs. Again, 8 pressures. He had a sack and a half. He was in on 3 different sacks in the Super Bowl. A 23.5% win rate in Super Bowl 59 was a team high at his position. Jalyx was phenomenal. And I actually think his best game of the playoffs was the NFC Championship against Washington. He was everywhere against the Commanders. He was all over Jaden Daniels. And the most exciting part is Jalyx has like certain strengths that no matter what, he's going to be a bendy, good speed edge rusher. Like he might, if he just hits his floor, that's what he's going to be able to do. He's going to be able to get you a lot of obvious pass rushing situation snaps where he beats a tackle to the edge just based on pure athleticism, an explosive first step, speed, and bend. But what was so exciting going back and watching that championship game tape against Washington is, again, you saw an accelerated development in Jalyx's game. Like, yes, again, he was really good at just lining tackles up, faking them out with just agility and speed and beating them to the corner, beating them to the right angle to get to the quarterback with his bend, with his speed. Like, that is his bread and butter. But I saw times where he was faking his speed move to get a tackle off balance, and then he was bull rushing him up the middle. I saw times where he would just beat the tackle multiple times with pure power. I saw chop moves. I saw, different counters. And that's something that for a player this raw, this new to the position as a rookie, in such high-stakes moments, like the game against the Rams in the divisional round, gotta have it moments in the Super Bowl, the fact that this guy was stepping up the way he was incredible. Like that's the most exciting part of Jalyx Hunt's game is the further the year went on, the more important the games were. He got better and better. He did not hit the rookie wall that even Jalen Carter hit in 2023. That's what's so exciting about that. Just that rookie class in general last year, and just a lot of the young players in general, like Moro Ojomo as well in year 2, is none of those guys hit that wall that you see a lot of young players hit, especially when you're a good football team playing games into January and February. Quinyon Mitchell got better as the year went on. Cooper DeJean got better as the year went on. Jalyx Hunt, again, he is kind of overshadowed by 2 Rookie of the Year finalists in his own rookie class, in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but Jalyx Hunt also was playing a prominent role in the postseason, and he was getting better and better every single game. This is such an exciting prospect. Like, yeah, he was a 3rd-round pick that, again, the Eagles didn't initially intend to have as big of a role as he's going to have this year initially, but it shouldn't surprise you that he's going to be able to do it. Like, when you look at his traits, the only reason I think he was a 3rd-round pick and not a 1st or 2nd rounder was his lack of experience at the position. Like, when you look at him in a vacuum, just when it comes to traits, and I love traits when it comes to edge rushers. His combo of size, speed, bend, length, overall power, it's really impressive. This is not a one-trick pony. Like, his traits are truly off the charts, and I think he showed in the postseason that he can win any way. I'm not predicting he's going to have more sacks than Nolan Smith next year. I'm not predicting he's going to have more sacks than Jalen Carter. Maybe even Azeez Ojulari has more sacks this year. Maybe he finishes the job more. But I think when it comes to like pass rush win rate, when it comes to overall snaps at his position, it's going to be Nolan Smith number 1, but Jalyx Hunt number 2. And I also think an exciting part of his game that I noticed on tape, he showed that he can be a good player against the run. And that's normally what comes last for a lot of younger edge rushers, especially players new to the position. Setting the edge, like that kind of commitment to that part of the game, I think sometimes takes a little bit slower. I thought Jalyx Hunt was a pretty good run stopper as well. So his traits, his tape were really exciting. I think the Eagles are really, really excited about Jalyx Hunt in year 2. And they need him to pan out, because if not, we'll get into it coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This might end up being the position that's the biggest area of need in 2026. We'll wrap up Locked On Jalyx Hunt coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. All right, guys, we are continuing our player profile series this month with the Locked On Eagles podcast. We continue on. We are locked on Jalyx Hunt. What a playoff run for the rookie. 1.5 sacks, 8 pressures, a 23.5 Super Bowl pass rush win rate, which led all Eagles edge rushers. Really exciting player. Traits are off the charts. What Vic Fangio can do for this guy in year 2, it's really, really exciting to think about. And the good thing is that Jalyx did show that development last year, because they need him more than they originally anticipated. And if he does not pan out, again, I think Azeez Ojulari is going to be a solid role player for this team. I think there is a chance that Joshua Uche does get back if they just use him as an attacking, obvious pass rusher on 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs. If they use Uche that way, I think he can get back to who he was with the New England Patriots early on in his career. I'm not projecting he's going to have 10-plus sacks, but I think Uche, if they don't use him like they used Bryce Huff last year and just ask him to do one thing, attack the quarterback, I think those guys can be a really strong part of this rotation. If you told me one or both of them are upgrades over Brandon Graham and maybe they're equally as good as who Josh Sweat has been the last couple years, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm not seeing like star power I don't think those guys are going to take the next step or become a rejuvenated player to the degree where they're stars at the next level. Jalyx Hunt, I think, has star potential opposite Nolan Smith. So they want him to be the guy that takes this job over. I think worst case scenario is Azeez Ojulari or Joshua Uche are the ones that are second in snaps behind Nolan Smith. And if Jalyx doesn't pan out because of everything I just laid out, edge could end up, like there's a lot of pressure on Jalyx. Edge could be the biggest area of need next offseason if Hunt does not step up. Outside of Nolan Smith, everything else at this position, there's upside, but there are more question marks at the edge position now than there has been with Philadelphia in a very long time. Like, the Eagles are going way more projection-based at this position than they normally do. A lot of the times, they like to have proven players here. They like to go for veterans or high-floor players. They like to have their Vinnie Currys and their Derek Barnetts. They've always had Brandon Graham to rely on, or they trade for a Michael Bennett or a Hassan Riddick. This year, yeah, they have veterans, but they're veterans with real question marks. Ojulari's injury history, Uche's performances over the last 2 years. Who the heck knows, again, what's going on with Bryce Huff? Jalyx Hunt is a huge question mark still in year 2. Like, will he take that next step up? Last year was still a pretty small sample size. It was a lot to get excited about, especially in the playoffs, but a lot of it is still projection-based. So they need him to pan out, or else next year you might be looking at this position as like the spot they draft somebody at least in the 1st or 2nd round. But again, I like that they're doing it this way. Howie is committed to giving young players that he's investing a lot in a chance to develop on the football field. He is seeing through these investments, that he is seeing through these projections that they're placing on these players. And I would Much rather have them do that than what they used to do, where they would block the path for a young player to get on the field, and you would never know if they pan out. And a lot of the times they wouldn't because of that. Last year, it was awesome that Howie said, hold on, I didn't give Nolan Smith enough of a chance to play in 2023, and we saw some flashes in the playoffs. This year, I'm going to let Hassan Reddick go. Even as good as he is, I'm going to rely on Nolan Smith, even though it's a lot of what-ifs. At an important position, it panned out. Nolan Smith was great. That kind of projection, I think they should do the same thing for Jalyx Hunt, and I think they will. I think Hunt could end up being your new Josh Sweat, where in a year or two, you look back at that 2024 draft and you say, how the hell did Jalyx Hunt fall to the third round? Like, I think he could be a third or fourth round steal of the draft, like Josh Sweat was in 2018. And now, again, a lot of this is still projection-based. As I said, he is still very raw, very new to this position. He flashed potential in the playoffs, but the first half of the year, the majority of the season, he didn't play a whole lot. The Eagles were really relying on Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat a majority of the season at this position. So a lot of this is projection-based. We got to see him do it on the field. He absolutely has competition at this position. Maybe Jihaad Campbell does pan out on the edge, and Jalyx is not the guy. He does have Ojulari behind him. He does have a motivated Joshua Uche. He might have Bryce Huff behind him as well. So Jalyx has to do the work, but the potential is there. The traits are there. The film at the end of the year in important spots, it's there. I think Philadelphia Eagles fans should be very, very excited about the possibilities of Jalyx Hunt. Tomorrow we will continue this player profile series. We're going to be locked on Keely Ringo, so make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Eagles podcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well, as we get you through the dead zone of the NFL offseason. We'll also probably talk about the tush push tomorrow, a league decision. It sounds like it's supposed to happen in the morning. A vote will take place. If they lose the vote again, I'm sure Roger Goodell's going to be like, actually, never mind. The Packers have a new revision of the rule proposal, the ban. So we're going to re-vote again in June or July. I imagine that's what's going to happen because they lost the vote 2 months ago and they just tabled it instead of it being a final decision. But whatever happens, we'll talk about that as well tomorrow right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast with my guys, Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs, getting you ready for the 2025 NFL season. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And as always, let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.